Again, good evening. Welcome to Optimizing Race Week. So our objective tonight will be, we will discuss how to structure a race week with both volume and intensity to ensure that you are fully recovered for race day. How to execute optimal race week fueling to incorporate effective fat and carbohydrate loading. Where your mental frame of mind should be and how to steer it in the right direction. Race week do's and don'ts, and also travel tips. So the first thing we're going to cover is long distance races, which we define as Ironman 70.3 and the marathon. So for these specific race distances, our guiding race week philosophies are as follows. It is better to enter the race more rested than sharp. So we would rather take a few extra days of recovery to make sure that the body is fully recovered for a race than to really use a few workouts to open up the legs and be ready for full throttle efforts. And that's because of the nature of the race distances. These are races that are anywhere between 3 and 12 hours long. So the need to have top-end speed is probably not going to come into play over these distances. Do nothing during race week that could potentially take away from race day performance. Stay off of feet, get as much rest as possible, and hydrate as well as possible during race week. Staying off the feet, that is a Pat Wheeler special. He has perfected the art of staying off of his feet the day before a big race. And Ironman, I believe he actually wears a stopwatch the day before the race and times the amount of time that he is on his feet. And I think he has it down. He can confirm this later on, down in the sub 20-minute range, I believe. Get as much rest as possible. So you want to, I know that life is taxing and work and kids and family, but you put a lot into these big races, a lot of training, a lot of sacrifice, and during this week, it's very important to take the time to be fully recovered for that. And, of course, as always, hydrate as well as possible, not just during race week, but in general as well. Another guiding race week philosophy is that we are going to have an effective fat load 5 days out from the race, and that's usually Tuesday for a Sunday race, Monday for a Saturday race. And by effective, that is something I'm going to go over in a few slides from now. And then carbohydrate loading in the final days before the race according to the specific distance and nature of the race. So we always want to make sure that we are loading our carbohydrates, but we don't want to have too much and we don't want to have too little. So we have specific protocols that we follow based upon the distances. So the Ironman carbohydrate loading is going to be different from the 70.3 carbohydrate loading, which is approximately similar to the marathon carbohydrate loading. Actually, I believe I'm mistaken. I believe the Ironman and the marathon, the 70.3 and the marathon are similar in carbohydrate loading technique. And give me 1 second. Race week structure for the Ironman 70.3 and the marathon. We typically like to incorporate 2 no-legs days, one of which must be the day before the race. This ensures that you enter race day very well rested. As we said before, one of our major guiding philosophies is that you enter the race more rested than sharp, and this is part of meeting that end. 2 focus days we use, one run focus day followed by a bike focus day, and so this adds a bit of minimally taxing race-specific intensity and separates the run from race day. So in our training protocol, typically we have durability weekends where we do a long bike followed by a long run. long bike, say, on a Saturday, followed by a long run on Sunday, and that's to have a microcosmic view of the of what we're going to experience on race day. And this is just a little bit different. So this kind of takes that and flips it just to keep that little bit of intensity that we do on the run as far out from race day as is logistically possible because of the nature of running and the beating that it puts on the body. Then 2 days prior to the race, short and easy maintenance workouts across all 3 disciplines. This really ensures that the equipment is operating properly, especially if you travel to a race. This is definitely something that you want to be sure of, and it just moves blood through the body. So this is probably the day that you are going to, for the first time in a while, put your race wheels on your bike, and you probably just want to do like a short 30-minute ride just to make sure that all of that is operating. Shifting is going to be okay, that the tires are not dinged up, and if you have a bike with rear dropouts, that those are set properly. A Sunday race. So on Monday, we typically like to do a recovery swim and a Zone R or Zone 1 ride up to a maximum of about 90 minutes. Tuesday, we'd like to have off. This is an ideal situation, and this doesn't necessarily fit for every athlete. Much of it will depend upon a volume of the athlete. Sometimes there are athletes who just don't have enough volume to justify all of these workouts. And B, travel situations. So it's not always possible to give the Tuesday off just due to travel. Sometimes that Tuesday off is a great day for travel, but with work and family obligations, it's not possible to travel on Tuesday, and you may have to come in a little bit later. So we like to have a Tuesday off. Wednesday, we would typically do something like a steady swim, and that would be our run focus day, where we do an easy ride followed by a Zone 1, Zone 2 transition run. Thursday, we add a little bit of intensity into the swim, and it's okay to be that close to race day because the swim is, first of all, it's not very intense, and it's also a very low-impact sport. And if these can be done at the race site to get accustomed to the swim venue, that is ideal. So we'd like to do a Tabata-type swim with those types of intervals, followed by a bike-focused day where we do a Zone 1, Zone 2 ride. And this is as you feel. You know, if you start out the ride in Zone 1, this is the same with the run. If you feel really good, then you can go into Zone 2 for, say, the last on the bike, 15 to 20 minutes. On the run, we say really no more than 10 to 12, maybe 15 minutes for our most durable of athletes. But it's always best to err on the side of caution here and stick with, maximum, say, 10 to 12 minutes of Zone 2 work. And then on this bike focus day here on Thursday, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here, we do a Zone 1, Zone 2 focused ride followed by just an easy transition run. Very race-specific in the type of workouts. We like to incorporate our brick workouts as much as possible. On Friday, we do very short and easy recovery workouts in all 3 disciplines, and all of these will have a few intense pickups, sometimes not the run. Excuse me. Sometimes we will leave these accelerations out of the run. Just it depends on the athlete and the nature of their durability, but it's not necessarily that important to open up the legs on the run, especially for an Ironman race, if it could potentially compromise recovery into the race. Saturday, we like to have off, and that's completely devoted to getting the stuff that has to be done for these long races, staying off your feet as much as possible, and the carbo load. Okay, so we're going to go to great pains to fill our body with as much carbohydrate as possible, and we want to, therefore, use as little carbohydrate as possible during that day. And then Sunday, we have the race. So this is more of a calendar view and a little more specific. Again, this really depends upon the athlete. Like I said, this is just an average athlete with average volume. Some people will have lower volume, some people will have higher volume, but you'll see, Monday might be a 2,000-yard recovery swim with a 60-minute recovery ride. Tuesday would be off. Wednesday would be a steady swim of about 1,500 yards. Wednesday is the run focus day, just a short recovery ride followed by a pretty decent zone 1, zone 2 run, 45 minutes, not too much nor too little, depending upon your athlete, of course. Thursday, we have the Tabata intervals, a little more length in the water, but not too much, not more than you're probably accustomed to at that point, followed by the bike-focused brick workout, 90 minutes at zone 1, zone 2, followed by just a 25-minute recovery run. Friday is just that short, easy day just to make sure everything's working. Saturday off, and then Sunday is the race. So that's just a calendar view of the previous slide. Race week fueling, and these are for the longer distance races. For the most part, eat as you normally would throughout the week. So on a typical training week that you have, for the most part, eat in that same way. There will be discrepancies to that on certain days. You should pay particular attention to your fluid intake. Urine should be clear or have just a hint of yellow. Good hydration is necessary for carbohydrate absorption. So it's not just about being well hydrated for the race. It's also going to be used as throughout the week, but specifically you want your body to be very well hydrated at the cellular level, because that is going to help the muscles to absorb the carbohydrates that you're going to be taking in through the week, but more specifically on the Friday and or Saturday before the race. We have what we call Fat Tuesday, and this is what I alluded to in an earlier slide. Typically 5 days, and this is really for just a Sunday race. For a Saturday race, this would occur on a Monday. Fat Tuesday, it helps to fuel the next 2 days' workout. So if you remember, Tuesday tends to be our off day, and then Wednesday and Thursday are our focus days, run focus followed by the bike focus. So this Fat Tuesday helps to fuel those 2 days of workouts and positions the body to absorb the upcoming carbo load. Studies have shown that the body absorbs carbohydrate loading better if there is a period of fat loading prior to that, and typically about 4 to 5 days before the carbohydrate loading. And so with this fat loading, we wanted to make sure we are eating high nutrient density foods. And that's what I meant by the word effective in the previous slide. I described it as an effective fat load. So we're looking for high nutrient density foods. So something like a turkey burger, sweet potato fries, foods that incorporate avocado. We are not looking for, this is not an excuse to go get an ice cream sundae, eat a greasy pizza, go to McDonald's and have a Big Mac. These are examples of things that we would like to avoid on our Fat Tuesday, because they are not necessarily going to bring the nutrients that we want to the body for race week. Our carbo load is going to start on either Friday or Saturday, depending upon the race distance. The longer the race that's coming, the longer the carbo load that we're going to utilize. So an Ironman carbo load will typically begin at lunchtime on Friday afternoon, and 70.3 carbo load will typically begin at dinner time on Friday before the race, or 2 days before the race, I should say, for a Sunday race. For a Saturday race, those things would take place on a Thursday. And then lastly, keep it clean. So during the carbo load during the week, or actually during all of race week fueling, we want low fiber, low fat, and low protein. We only want foods that will translate into speed. And each of these three things will only slow the body's ability to absorb the carbohydrates when we begin the load. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. So now I'm going to run through a number of slides that are very similar to what we just went over for the longer distance races. These are going to be for the shorter distance races. There's going to be a bit of redundancy in places between the shorter distance races and the longer distance races, but there are also plenty of spots where things are just a bit different. So we'll just have to pay careful attention to that. And these are going to be, where the last group of slides were for the Ironman, the half Ironman, and the marathon. These are going to be for the Olympic, the sprint, and the half marathon distances. So our guiding philosophy. So unlike the longer distance races, where it's better to be rested than sharp, it is better to enter the race more sharp than rested. Okay, so these are the types of races where top-end speed is going to play a key role in the day. So we want to make sure that if we have to choose between the two, and we typically do have to choose between being either sharp or rested, we would prefer to be a little sharper than we are rested. Okay. Again, as with anything, and this should not just be during race week. This is during, just an average week, 17 weeks out from the race. Do nothing during race week that could potentially take away from race day performance. That's a redundancy, but it's an important thing, and it should just be a guiding philosophy in your training and racing life in general. As always, get off the feet as much as possible and hydrate as well as possible. Now, unlike the longer distance races, there is no need for a fat load 5 days from race day, and I'll go a little more into that in a few slides, but that's a difference between the two classifications of distances. And then, excuse me, carbohydrate loading will typically take place in the day before the race only, so not 2 days before the race like the longer distances. So that's a difference as well between the two classifications. Okay, so for a Sunday race, much is going to be the same. We're gonna have the Monday workouts are going to be very much the same. Tuesday's going to be off. Wednesday remains as our run focus day, and Thursday as our bike focus day, with the similar swim workouts. But the key difference that we should note is that Friday is going to be off, and then Saturday we're going to have the very short and easy recovery workouts. So you'll see that we flip-flop the Friday and the Saturday across the two classifications, so that, and this aligns with our philosophy of going into the race more sharp than rested. Okay, so we don't necessarily need to stay off our feet as much as possible. I shouldn't say that. We have an adage at QT2 where, for an Ironman, for a longer distance race, ideally someone would wheel you to the starting line in a wheelchair and dump you into the water, and that is not necessarily the case for these distance races. Okay, and that's why we use this Saturday workouts to just prepare the body to operate at top end speed, unlike the others. Then on Sunday we have a race day. For a Saturday race, this would just be a little different. The Thursday would be off, and then the Friday would take place those shorter workouts, and Saturday would be the race. So this is just a calendar view of what we just looked at, similar to the previous classification of distances. Nothing too different here, just outlining specific distances. But you'll just note that we do still incorporate two no legs days as best we can, and then just having the workouts on Saturday rather than on Friday. The off day is 2 days out rather than the day before. Okay, then race week fueling. So much of this is going to be very similar to what we talked about with the longer distances, but some of it's going to be different. So our first bullet is much the same for the most part. Eat as we normally would throughout the week. Also with hydration, pay very particular attention to fluid intake. Again, with the urine, should be clear, just a hint of yellow. The hydration will lead to carbohydrate absorption. But now we have a difference where there's no need for a Fat Tuesday, and I'm sorry about that. But race distance is not as dependent upon fat stores for fuel. So in the longer distance races where we're operating so much of our time below threshold, we are utilizing a great deal. We are utilizing fat oxidation for a fuel source, and that is not necessarily going to be as much of the case. It's still going to be a good deal of the case, but not as much of the case over these shorter distances. Okay, so we don't necessarily need to top off our fat supplies. We're going to be a little more particular with our glycogen stores. So the carbo load starts with breakfast on Saturday. Again, we don't get the carbo load 2 days before, so it's just a day before. Shouldn't necessarily say Saturday. It's 1 day out. And then, as always, keep it clean, low fiber, low fat, and low protein. And because all of these will slow the absorption of carbohydrates to the body, to the muscles. Okay, so now we have some miscellaneous race week items that pop up, and this is kind of a smorgasbord of things that arise when you are at a race, going to a race, traveling to a race, or preparing for any of this stuff. First thing I would just like to point out, and this is one of my favorite Aerosmith quotations, and life's a journey, not a destination. And much of your training can be viewed as the journey of the training and not just the destination of race day. So just keep in mind during race week that you did all of that training. So in a 27-week training plan, you did 26 weeks all to get to this 1 week. So it is very, very important. You made tremendous sacrifices. Your family and friends made tremendous sacrifices and huge expenses financially and emotionally to get to this point. Excuse me. Over the course of 26 weeks, and now during this one last week, just don't blow it. Okay, and that's really the point of this. So just keep that in mind. And there's plenty of opportunity during race week. I can think of a few on my end that I have done in the past that I will speak to later on, where I was fully prepared for a race, and during a race week I blew it. So just something to keep in mind. So race week, the mental game. Stay positive. Eliminate negative energy and self-doubt. This will go a long way in helping you approach race morning in a good state of mind. Race morning is going to be stressful enough. You're going to have 2,000 people, say for an Ironman, who are all going to start to swim at the same time. That's a very scary proposition. And you really don't need to talk yourself out of success. Don't become your own worst enemy. Remind yourself of those previous 26 weeks of training that you did. Remind yourself of all the preparation that you put in. This should elicit self-confidence relative to your abilities. So you should know that, yes, I can do this. I put in all this work. I am prepared to be able to handle this day. Limit time and exposure at the expos. Nothing good happens down at these expos. Mainly you will just be walking around with a bunch of athletes who all look extremely fit, and the tendency can be to, excuse me, to look at these athletes and view them as being much more prepared than you are. So you'll perceive them to be just of greater athletic worth than you. So it's just not it sets you up to be in a poor mental state. But just keep in mind that if you do end up at the expo and you start feeling that way, that they are looking at you, they are probably looking at you and thinking the same thing. So just a heads up on that. Establish a sensible pacing plan and stick to it. Plan to race your race, not everyone else's race. And this really goes back to the second bullet here. After all of this preparation, and you should really know what you are capable of and what your abilities are. So develop a pacing plan and review it and stick to it. But develop a pacing plan that is specific to what you have done in your training, and don't allow yourself to to fall victim to what everybody else is doing on the course, because there's a lot of, for lack of a better word, a lot of stupidity that occurs on an Ironman race course, especially in the early portions of a bike, that you just don't want to be a part of. Sleep. This is probably the number one remedy for an unfit mental health. So if you are in a bad spot mentally, you probably, for the most part, need more sleep. And that can be a good indicator. It's oftentimes difficult for us to see our own flaws, but you, if you're able to become a bit more self-aware, and you do realize that, you know, usually I don't typically feel this way or that way. I'm feeling kind of down about things, and just start to think about what kind of sleep you've been getting, and has it been up to what we feel is necessary? And that's probably where you're lacking. And then lastly, once you get to race week and really to the race site, excuse me, it can get pretty stressful and you can get sucked into a lot of stuff. But just to minimize stress, finish your workouts and other errands early each day. So try to get your workouts done as soon as possible each day, especially if you travel to more of these races that are in warmer climates. You want to get the workouts done before the day gets hot. You're really not doing a great deal of heat acclimation during race week, because that's just going to lead to dehydration. Get this stuff done before the day gets hot, before the sun gets too high, and then, you know, get other errands done too, so you can spend as much time off of your feet as possible, and just focusing on being rested and recovery for race day. Just some common pitfalls. Like I said, this is a bit of a smorgasbord of miscellaneous things that can pop up during race week. And this first bull is one of my great flaws at the Ironman distance. Midweek race course TTs. It can be very easy to fall into the trap. You know, you travel to a race site and you get there a little early. And this happened to me in 2005 in Hawaii. I got to the race about a week before the event, and so I spent a good deal of time on the Queen K, just doing my riding as I thought I should. But you end up out there with a lot of athletes, and everyone is amped up for this big event that's occurring, and there's a lot of ego / testosterone out there, even before the race, and so it's very easy to fall into the trap of falling into a midweek quote unquote time trial, where you're just out there hammering with no real specific purpose. So this is a common pitfall. So this is something I did pretty much all week before the Hawaii Ironman in 2005, and then on race day, I did not do that when I should have been doing it. I tried to do that, and there was just nothing in the tank, and I had left it out, you know, on the course in the 5 days preceding that. Next bull. Sometimes the W you know is better than the W you don't. Carefully consider changes, and really what I'm trying to say there is don't make any changes to what you know works. You know, sometimes. Yeah, you don't want to change your fueling plan that you know works well. If you use a particular brand of salt tablet, you know, do your best to make sure you have that particular brand of salt tablet. Don't change your hydration system. This is not the time to go from your typical aero bottle, traditional aero bottle, in the front to a bracket on the front that holds a traditional water bottle. That this kind of stuff is just go with what you know. That's really the message there. And this is part of the reason why I say to stay away from the expos during race week, because they have all of this stuff, which is good stuff if you've had, months and months to practice with it. But if you have not had months and months of practice with it, and it's really going to come down to minutes and minutes of practice, then it's really not worth having. A major pitfall that I see, this drives me absolutely insane, is don't be a tourist or act like you're on vacation before the race. And I understand that you travel with, you know, family, small children, who have put a great deal of sacrifice on the line for this, but all of that sacrifice that they and you have put into this race have been with the intention of having a great race. And so, like I said, you have in a previous slide, you've done 26 weeks of preparation for this 1 week of race. Don't blow that week by going for a day hike or shopping. Try to save that stuff for after the race. You know, if you are able to extend, especially with these destination type races, if you're able to extend your stay just a bit so that you can do this stuff and reward your family for putting up with you over these past 6 months, try to do it after the race so that all is for naught. All is not for naught, I guess I should say. But the one thing that really irks me that I see a lot of people do, excuse me, and this occurs at the hotels in the day or two before the race, is people sitting by the pool tanning. This is not the time to work on your tan lines. People are out there just sitting in the sun at high noon, just allowing the sun to zap them of any energy. You want to be away from the sun as much as possible in these final days before the race. So just don't be a tourist. Another common pitfall is, and this is one that we used, is leaving too little room for error with travel. Try to avoid acting like a Navy SEAL team. You do not want to be in and out before anyone knows you were even there. You try to get to the race a little on the earlier side so that you can make sure that your bike arrives okay, and if there's a problem, it can be taken care of. We recently went down to Ironman Cozumel, and we flew in on Friday right before the race. We got there midday Friday. Excuse me. Midday Friday for a Sunday race. So there was a bit of stress associated with that because we had to make sure that the bike got there, number one, and we were traveling to a foreign country, so you have to worry about customs. Everything worked out fine with that kind of stuff, but you also have to worry about registration, that it's going to be open for you. And there's very little room for error, and it just added stress, which can zap energy from you, and just you don't need it. And then lastly, go with what you know. And this is especially true if you're traveling to a foreign land. Try to eat foods that are as close to what you're accustomed to as possible. No matter where you are, you can probably typically order chicken or salad. So try to stay around there. If you're traveling to a race in some place where octopus is the fare of choice, that now is not the time to try octopus for the first time in your life. It's not the time to become a connoisseur of sushi. This is the kind of stuff that you can do after the race, but not before. So try it in the days leading into a race. Just stick to what you know and try to eat as closely to that as possible. And this is just a reminder, review your fueling plan. Okay, I'm not going to go over the specifics of this fueling plan because this is specific to an athlete, but just, midweek, take it out, look it over, make sure you have everything that you need. I would even say the week before you leave, just make sure you have everything that you need so that you can run to the store or order online. Make sure you have it. But just take it out, look it over, and be prepared with it. And then this is a plan ahead. Know what you're in for. So you're traveling to a race site. There's going to be a lot going on. So you just want to be prepared. Things are not going to be as you might expect them to be. So you want to make sure, you want to predetermine what the amenities that will be available to you are. You know, a few years ago we traveled to St. Croix, which is a very, very nice race, but the amenities were lacking, and that's something we weren't fully aware of. We thought we were traveling to a big city, Kristen said, St. Croix, and we couldn't have been more wrong. I don't believe I remember ever seeing a grocery store. We went to we went to a store that sold food, but it wasn't a place where you would be able to get, you know, your unsweetened applesauce or the stuff that you're accustomed to eating. You wouldn't be able to get your fat-free Fig Newtons at that store. So just know what you're in for. There was, you know, really one or two restaurants in the town that was open. To be honest with you, there was very little open. So just know what you're walking into. So be able to locate grocery stores, restaurants that are going to serve food that you, for lack of a better term, can eat during race week, and bike shops and massage if you're a person who likes to get a massage during race week. You can typically line all that stuff up before arriving at your destination. Be on your best behavior. So when you arrive at a race site, and this is especially at the Ironman distance, anyone who's ever been to Lake Placid, this is a perfect example, knows that the Lake Placid in the days before the race will begin swarming with triathletes. They're like bees. They're everywhere. It completely shuts down the town. So, and this can oftentimes cause the local residents to become a bit aggravated with us. So just be on your best behavior. Try to be a little bit of goodwill goes a long way to the local residents. Sure, we definitely support their economy, but we don't need to, you know, ride 3 or 4 abreast down the roads and take over the entire thoroughfare. They need to live their lives as well. But you should be prepared that there's going to be, you know, during race week, in a place like a Lake Placid that's just a small village, there's going to be an influx of, say, 10,000 people when you consider all the racers and their families and friends and media coverage and stuff like that, and support staff. So just be aware of that kind of stuff, and don't let it overwhelm you with that. And again, also to this, as a result of this, you can expect that local restaurants will have long waits for service. So if you do want to eat, you're not going to go to a restaurant and get in at, you know, within 10 minutes of arriving. It's probably going to be, you know, 30 or 40, maybe an hour, maybe 90-minute wait. Just be aware of that. And it's worse for those that are closest to the race site. In the area, you can expect prices for goods and services, especially at the race site, to be extremely inflated. This really goes for the expo and the bike services that they provide. If you're going to have mechanical work done to your bike at the expo, I would recommend going to a local bike shop and get stuff there. They tend to be much more accommodating, and their prices tend to be much more in line with what is appropriate. Traveling with your bike. So now I'm going to talk about, you know, actually flying with your bike. So when you fly with your bike, I highly recommend that you consider airline fees for the checking a bike as luggage. And these fees are each way. And oftentimes, for some airlines, can be as much as flying with another person. Sometimes it makes sense to just buy your bike a seat so it can sit next to you. So these should be really considered in your plane fare. So like U.S. Airways, for example, charges $200 each way to travel with a bike. Delta is $150 each way. United is $100. JetBlue and Southwest are the two best that I have seen. There is one better, I believe it's called Frontier Airline, which of course goes nowhere, but provides service travel to like the Colorado area, instead of that Midwest area, and there is no fee for bikes on that airline. But for your major carriers that are, you know, local to the big hubs, the big travel hubs, these the JetBlues and the Southwest are going to provide the best baggage fee. So you're really looking at, to travel with your bike on a Southwest or a JetBlue, you're looking at an additional $100 total, as opposed to like a U.S. Airways, which would be $400, or a Delta, which would be $300. So that should be a significant consideration for you when you travel. Do not this one happened to Kate and I. Do not pack race nutrition, specifically gels, into your carry-on. There's only a certain, I believe it's 3 ounces of a gel-like substance that is allowed in your carry-on, and nutritional gels count. The TSA will confiscate those, which they did to us. So just be aware of that. Those are best placed right into your bike bag, I would recommend. Keep in mind that CO2 is banned from air travel. I will typically travel with it. I'll take the chance. Sometimes they find them, sometimes they don't. If you do travel with CO2, I would highly recommend not connecting it to other key pieces of your bike. For instance, do not tape it to your to your spare tire, because if they confiscate the CO2, there's a decent chance they'll confiscate the spare tire as well, and you do not want to be out, $70 rather than just $10. And also keep in mind that when you buy CO2 at the race site, it's typically probably better just to buy it once you arrive. But if you do, I would probably go to a local bike shop. The price will be high for CO2 because they know you can't travel with it, so they take full advantage of that. So just be aware of that. Don't be afraid to have your local bike shop pack your bike for you. Those of us who have done a great deal of travel with our bikes are comfortable breaking down and putting together our bikes. But if you have not really traveled with your bike very often, it could be a very good idea to have someone do it for you, because it's a very expensive device and you just don't want it. There's a lot that can go wrong. If you choose to pack it yourself, just remember to remove the pedals. You don't want to kill your wheels because of the pedals. Take off your rear derailleur and secure it to the frame. The derailleur is a very easy device to bend, and travel is a good time for it to bend. So if you can just remove it from the bike, it's very easy to do. And I recommend just securing it to the frame. Usually I wrap it into an old T-shirt and tie the two to the bottom stay. Deflate your tires, especially if you are using tubes in your tires, clinches, because the air pressure risks bursting a tire. And then just lastly, and this is probably the most important of all of them, mark your seat height and specific position of the spaces on the stem. So if you have 5 spaces on your stem, 3 of them are below your if 3 of them are below the stem, and 2 of them above, just make sure you know that so you can put the bike in the proper position when you put it back together. And just make sure the aero bar pitch, the angle at which the aero bars point, whether they be flat or slightly up, just make sure you know that. Just mark all that stuff right on the equipment. I highly recommend throwing in a bunch of extra rags. You never know. They provide some padding. They provide they're good to wipe down the bike. You can clean your bike with it. Just a good thing to have. And I would recommend using the entire allowable weight limit that the airline allows. You're going to pay a good amount of money to travel with your bike, so pack as much in there as possible. I will typically try to travel with only my bike, so I'll just stick all my clothes in there that I'm going to use for the week, whether it be training or just casual wear. That I always do pack an extra shirt and a pair of shorts in my carry-on, because sometimes the bag doesn't the bike bag does not arrive on time. So it's good to have a backup plan. And lastly, you can pack it as neatly as you'd like. TSA is going to make a significant mess of it. So just don't be too thrown off by that. Very rarely does stuff go missing when TSA goes through it, but just everything is going to be displaced. But they usually put it all back. It's just not in the nice, neat, orderly manner that you had originally packed it. And lastly, if you're turn, just let me take a minute and go through and unmute everybody so that we can address any questions, should there be any. I just have to remember how to do that. Oh, I'm going to have to keep you muted, I'm sorry, because you have a headset on. Dave, you too, I'm sorry. As I said earlier, I can only unmute people who do not have headsets. If you do have a headset and you have a question, please ask your question via the chat area, which I'm going to check right now. So right now I don't see any questions. Does anyone have any questions? Rich.
Nope, I don't.
Okay. Let me just, 1 second, I just want to, there's a lot of background noise on somebody. I'm just trying to figure out exactly who that is. Oh, I think I found my culprit, Mr. Wheeler. Okay, so, Mr. Wheeler, you're going to have to remain muted until further notice. Okay, so Dave Lasky has asked the question, do you do something specific to help with sleep? For instance, bringing your pillow. I typically, actually, good question, and this is a bit embarrassing, but I do have this blanket that I use as a pillow. It's like I'm a small child, but I won it at a Christmas Yankee swap that I fell in love with it, and I actually do travel with that, and that does aid my sleep. So yes, I do. Good question. And it's only recently that I started doing that. Any other questions? Please type them directly into the chat area if you have them. We'll just give a few minutes to address questions should they arise. And feel free when you do ask a question to the chat area to send it to everyone. Just going to give another minute for people to type in any questions, and if they do not arrive, we will end the webinar. I see a couple more people on phones. See if Pat has fixed his issue. Oh, Worcester is loud tonight. Is it? And in the chat. I want to make sure I'm not cut anybody off. Okay, it doesn't appear that we have any questions. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to you attending one of our future webinars. Have a great night.